Everybody, and welcome to another episode of the live Q&A sessions coming to you every Friday, 2 p.m. on Facebook NZHSP. I hope this finds you all well. Now, I'm just going to do a little bit of admin whilst you guys all find your seats and perhaps mute or turn off your notifications and get yourselves comfortable as we crack into yet another episode of the live Q&A sessions. I'm just making sure that this is actually coming in live, making sure that you guys can hear me. Annoying thing where the live session kicks off and the presenter just stuffs around for the first 5 minutes. Very boring, right? Not exactly entertaining for you. So, yeah, lots going on in the health and safety world. Some interesting developments, conversations going on in terms of health and safety legislation, regulatory rule changes potentially, has been hinted at by the Minister of Workplace Relations and Safety. I see NZISM have responded in a really timely way. So NZISM, hats off to you. Congratulations for getting the survey out to the public. So it's really important to be aware that the survey that NZISM have put out is not only for NZISM members. This is a public survey. So the idea is they are gathering as much information as they possibly can um, uh, yeah, in terms of your thoughts and feelings around the overall performance of health and safety in New Zealand, your thoughts around the legislation, the performance of WorkSafe NZ, the regulatory guidelines, good practice guidance materials, all that kind of good stuff, so that they can then bundle that information and take that hopefully to the minister and present the overall themes and findings of that material. So the reason why I say hopefully is because there is no guidance or guidelines around her review process. We don't even know what the review process is really truly going to look like. So we can only hope and assume that the team at NZISM and others will be able to get a 5 minute audience with her and her team. So let's just wait and see on that one. Okay. I just want to make sure that this is coming in live for you guys. So I am going to do that annoying thing for 2 seconds and just look at my screen whilst I'm also meant to be talking to you. Cool. Hey, there we go. All right. Awesome. Cool, team. So it would be awesome to let me know if you can hear me clearly and it's coming through okay. It'd also be really awesome if you can also see me as well. So give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a comment. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Awesome to have you on the live call today. I hope you and the team are doing well. One of these days we will catch up for that coffee in Auckland. Just like you, I suspect it's extremely busy at the moment. And I've said this before in terms of busyness. I do genuinely want to say that anyone in the consulting game, I truly hope you are busy and that you are kicking goals out there. The market's been a really weird place the last couple of years. Please don't take it to heart if things are a little bit quiet for you at the moment. Keep pushing. I promise you, the perfect customer and client is just around the corner. So just keep doing what you're doing. The world needs you and your services. So just keep on pushing. Cool. Hey, Beck, nice to see you too. Cool. All right. Looks like it's working. All right. So what are we doing today? What are we going to talk about? I wanted to break down the top 10 pieces of advice or the top 10 tips that I would be suggesting or recommending officers, directors, people with significant decision-making powers across an organization or an undertaking. So CEO, managing director, board of directors, if the organization is big enough. What should they be thinking about or what should they be asking about in order to have some sense of confidence that they are doing everything that is reasonably practicable to meet their duties under the Health and Safety at Work Act. I am leaning heavily on a checklist and some great guidance that the Institute of Directors and WorkSafe collaboratively put together back in 2016, which is still one of my go-to documents that I often steer my customers and clients toward. There was a rumor that it's often described as the blue document. There was rumored that there was a review and an update to that, which was scheduled for the beginning of this year. I'm hoping that that's still going to be the case because it is a really neat document, and a refresh would be a very welcome addition to the toolkit that we all have. If you're looking for that particular document that I'm banging on about, it is also, you'll find it in the NZHSP files section. There's a heap of free PDF downloads and bits and pieces in there that you can make use of. So we're going to delve into that in a few minutes. But before I do that, I just wanted to get into the habit of doing my regular feature within this show, which is to acknowledge members of the NZHSP Facebook community who continue to amaze and put in energy and resource answering your questions and just being bloody good sorts. So this week, I wanted to pay particular attention to Tony McAriff, Dean Thompson, and Shane Strode-Penny. You guys, seriously, thank you so much. Your efforts, your kindness, your willingness to share your insights and to encourage and inspire others is just phenomenal. So thank you each for just being bloody good sorts. It does mean the world to me. I know that it brings a ton of value to the members as well. How do I know that? Because of the level of engagement, conversations, questions, likes, shares that happen as a result of the times that you are here and sharing your wisdom. So thank you each. Each week from here on in, I'm going to be shining light on members of the NZHSP community that are just awesome, who are just really bringing the value to the table. Not always necessarily the people that are posting. It can also be people who I can see or hear about in the back end, who are doing really amazing things out there. So I just wanted to really say that your efforts, no matter where they happen to be, are seen, and to each of you, really, just keep on rocking. Your efforts are just making a big impact in ways you don't even realize. So keep on being awesome. So for Tony, Dean, and Shane, thanks guys. It means the world. I also wanted to give a very special nod to Joe Preetmore, who I was lucky enough to interview on the Health and Safety Upload podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it went live on Tuesday, and far out in terms of the number of watches and the number of shares, the number of comments, the number of likes across LinkedIn, Facebook, and on YouTube, tells me that Joe, you are clearly a health and safety rock star, even if you don't know it. And it was an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to catch up with you. Joe helped unpick some of the unnecessary complexities when it comes to health and safety, reminding us all to have the bullshit checklist in mind when it comes to policies and procedural documents, to ensure that the end user truly does understand the meaning and purpose of those documents, and to remove unnecessary jargon, not only for the men and women on the coalface, but also in terms of winning the hearts and minds of the executive leaders. They too have a bullshit radar. If you or a health and safety professional or someone else who's trying to win the hearts and minds of a business leader is relying heavily on terminology and jargon and technical detail, generally that's when the bullshit radar starts going off, and you will lose their attention and you will do yourself a disservice. Joe's talk really helped to underscore the importance of just keeping things simple, because it doesn't have to be overly complicated. And I guess that's probably quite a neat segue into the next section of this live Q&A, which is a focus on, hey Jen, nice to see you, mate. See, it's actually heaps of you guys tuning in for the live call today, so I hope you're all good. Feel free to let me know how you're doing, where you're tuning in from, how's the weather. Feel free to let us know in the comment section. We're listening. And and leads me into the main topic for today. Normally I do two or three things that I'm going to talk about during the live Q&A, but this time I felt that it was of value to us all to remind ourselves of the types of questions that an officer of an organization. Cool. Hey, Karen. Orewa? Oh man, that's terrible pronunciation. I hope it's all warm and sunny in your part of the world, Karen. Awesome to have you here. And so, yeah, the types of questions, the types of things that the officer of an organization or an undertaking should be asking themselves in order to be or to have some comfort or sense of assurance that what they are doing is meeting the thresholds of what is reasonably practicable in terms of the duty of the officer. And the reason why I'm focusing in on this stems back to some of the comments that we've heard in the media from the Honourable Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety, Van Velden, who is indicating that from the conversations that she's had with business owners and leaders, that the Health and Safety Act and legislation, regulations, good practice guidelines are confusing, and there's a lot of grey, murky areas, and it's caused uncertainty and pushing business leaders to spend thousands of dollars on health and safety posters. And so I want to help to provide some clarity in terms of what good looks like and the types of questions that a business leader should be asking themselves to at least have some certainty. So this checklist, sourced from the Institute of Directors in combination with the team at WorkSafe back in 2016, produced a 10-step checklist to help provide some clarity to officers of organizations, backed by the blue document, which is kind of the good practice guidelines for business officers here in New Zealand to help meet the requirements of the Health and Safety at Work Act 2015. Okay, so with that introduction done, let's crack into it, right? So we've got 15 minutes left. I reckon we can cover this. So the first question a officer of a business should be asking themselves is, how did the board and all of the directors demonstrate their commitment to health and safety? And the first thing that springs to mind is a workplace health and safety policy statement that is spelling out exactly what the organization is committing to in terms of meeting the expectations of the Health and Safety at Work Act, regulations, subsequent amendments to the Act. It may also align the organization to a particular standard. So it may be ISO 45001, for example, as a threshold or a standard that the organization is setting itself to meet. The reason it being is that every business or undertaking in New Zealand must have a safe system of work in place. What does that look like in practice? Well, that's why myself and my colleagues steer businesses towards ISO 45001, because it's an internationally recognized standard, and it's not likely to be going away anytime soon. Even if organizations aren't intending to become certified to that standard, why wouldn't you, in all honesty? And perhaps that could be a subject for a conversation in the comments thread down below. But in terms of that first question, how did the board and the directors demonstrate their commitment to health and safety? The traditional health and safety policy statement that lists exactly what the business is attempting to achieve, signed and dated by either the CEO, the managing director, or all of the officers of the organization, and ideally have that placed somewhere visibly across the organization, and build that into the organization's employee induction training process and annual refresher as well. Second, how do you ensure that the organization's risks are assessed and appropriate mitigation measurements are put into place? The easiest way to ensure that that is the case is to have a readily available, routinely updated hazard and risk register. All known hazards that cannot be eliminated within the organization should be recorded in a central space. For larger organizations, you may have local hazard and risk registers for business units or offices in various locations, but there should be a central record of all known hazards and risks within the organization, which also details the initial risk rating, the controls using the hierarchy of controls, starting with elimination, working our way down to the bottom of that rung, which has been PPE, residual risks. Then the board and the senior leaders then need to ask themselves, well, what is an acceptable residual risk rating? And are the residual risks that we have identified and recorded in this register still acceptable to us today? So when the board of directors get together during their monthly or bi-monthly meetings, the thing that they should be doing is looking at the top residual risk ratings. There may only be half a dozen, and asking themselves the question, are the residual risk ratings still acceptable to us? Are the current controls that are in place to mitigate those risks still as effective as they were when this was first recorded? And if there is any sense of unease, or there's an opportunity to reduce those risks further, or even better, to eliminate them, the board of directors should then be insisting that that is the case. So that would be how I would answer that second question. The third question of the top 10 questions I would be asking if I was an officer in New Zealand is, how does the organization involve its workers in health and safety? What routine, engagement and participation processes does the organization have? So that could be monthly all-team meetings. That could be around the water cooler meetings. It could be informal sessions in the kitchen environment during a lunch and learn, for example. Or it could be more formally structured systems such as a health and safety committee and representative structure. Remembering that workers also includes contractors and service providers as well. So having a think about how do we engage and work with those other parties. So whether that's just simply sharing hazard and risk information between the various parties, or having some formal or informal communication channel with them. Could just simply be a monthly, quarterly update. These are the things that we're working on at the moment. What are you guys working on? And doing a bit of a show and tell and sharing of that type of information. All right, number 4 of the top 10 list. How do you ensure that the organization's health and safety targets are challenging, realistic, and aren't creating unintended consequences? I love that. So good. So that's having smart KPIs, basically. Simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. So it could be we have committed to doing a monthly all-team meeting. The KPI for the next 12 months ahead is 12 times monthly meetings, and the acceptable standard is maybe 11 out of 12 meetings achieved for the year ahead. That would be a metric that would be easily measurable and a little bit challenging, and also time bound, right? So it's meeting all those smart thresholds. We could also be talking about some of the lag type indicators as well. So it could be the number of lost time injuries and all that kind of old school way of thinking, but there's still some value, I believe, in using lag indicators, even if they have really fallen out of fashion. The really nice thing I like about that is the unintended consequences, and that often comes about with the lag type reporting, but also I would say is the near miss type reporting as well. So if the company, for example, this is an unintended consequences, if the organization or the officer of the organization is pushing to have all members of the team report, 4 near miss reports a month, then what you will find is that you will suddenly get a ton of reports, but the value of those reports just bottoms out because people are just making up crap just to comply with the work instruction, right? So it's having a think about unintended consequences of the types of metrics that the officers are requesting. So keep it simple, keep it proactive, keep it useful for the organization, and avoid putting in work instructions that send us in all sorts of crazy ways. Another really good example is the zero harm KPI, which has been in favor for a while. It's starting now to fall out of favor in the health and safety space. The unintended consequences of that is people will start to change and twist the way in which incidents are being reported. Just this week, I saw a really serious incident investigation report that came through, and I was asked to review it. It clearly listed this event as a near miss, despite the fact that this individual had been lifted up off the ground 10 meters into the air. Once they realized what had happened, that individual was then brought down, lowered down to the ground, but on the way down to being lowered to the ground, he fell 2 or 3 meters. Was very lucky to be alive, but somehow that was reported as a near miss. That to me suggests that there's some really very odd metrics being put into play to justify that type of report. Because from my perspective, that is anything but a near miss. That's not a near miss, and so there's perhaps a zero harm type metric going on with that business, which has led whoever has written that report to come up with that. It's, yeah, interesting stuff, but that's an unintended consequence, I would argue. Okay, number 5 of the top 10 things I would be asking myself as an officer of an organization to have some sense of confidence that I am meeting my duties and responsibilities as an officer. Okay, what data is the board receiving on both health and safety, and is this sufficient? So the board often, their key, or their main source of health and safety related information is the traditional health and safety board report that they will get to read, if you're lucky, on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. That's generally where they get their source of information. So as a health and safety manager, advisor, coordinator, consultant, the board report is key. It's essential to being able to paint a true picture of how things are performing within that organization. What I do is I use a template that I've created that covers all 6 duties of the officer. So it works through how the data that the board want to receive, how that can be broken down into the 6 parts of the officer's duty, so that it gives further assurance to the officers that they are kind of hitting each of those parts of the key elements of being an officer duty holder. Another way in which the board can receive health and safety data is by getting out of the boardroom and spending time with people on the floor. So whether that's in the office environment or at the coalface, right? And not being there awkwardly or telling people what to do, but being there and showing a genuine interest in what the people are up to, asking open-ended questions rather than closed type of questions. By doing that, it reinforces the information they're receiving at the board report level. One of the KPIs that I recommend organizations to implement is to have at least one day a year for the members of the board to get out and about, to spend time in amongst the organization within those higher risk work environments. If it can be more frequently than that, brilliant, bring it on. But at least by doing that, it's giving them some sense of assurity that what they're being told in writing is actually happening in practice. Okay, next, how does the organization ensure all workers are competent and adequately trained in their health and safety responsibilities and accountabilities? So this requires the organization to have a training record. It also requires the organization to define what competence means to that organization. Often companies of all shapes and sizes fail on this spot. They forget to do it. And so what does competence actually mean? How do we verify that? What are the processes? Does that include work activity observations by other members of the team? Does that include having input or insights from external stakeholders? What does it mean to be an adequately or suitable training provider? What are some of the criteria that the organization accepts as adequate training provider requirements, because often what we tend to do is we just send people out to receive training. We don't really think too much about the quality or the content of that training. We just want to get the unit standards or to get the certificate to say that we've done it, right? Is that really making our people competent? And those are the types of questions that a member of the board, the officers, should be asking the management team to have adequate systems and structures in place to ensure that that happens in practice. All right, team. I'm sorry. I'm very aware of the time, and I'm doing my usual and going off on tangents. Blah blah blah. Okay. Does the organization have sufficient resources, people, equipment, systems, and budget for its health and safety program? Really, really key component of the duty of the officer is the resourcing section. So ensuring that everyone has the processes, the policies, the systems to report to act on those findings and to close out those findings and to be able to demonstrate that that's happened in practice. Ensuring that people are adequately equipped with the right equipment to do what it is they are set to do. Having a robust health and safety management system really does help, as does electronic reporting systems make this piece of the puzzle a lot easier to manage. The role of the officer here would be to ensure that the management team and the executive have applied adequate resource and energy in the development of a robust and suitable health and safety management system, perhaps aligned to a certificate, to a particular standard, as I mentioned earlier on, and that the officers of the organization need to have some confidence that that is then working in practice. So it's making sure that the KPIs are on track, ensuring that the health and safety management system has perhaps been tested and verified by a certification body, or at least aligned to, certainly goes some way to hitting that target. Okay, does the organization have a schedule of audits and reviews to ensure the health and safety management system is fit for purpose? Internal auditing using a recognized framework from one year to the next. We're asking the same types of questions and we're looking for evidence to ensure that what we said was going to get done is actually happening in practice from a systems point of view. And then externally, whether that's from a third-party professional expert or a certification body, to provide further assurance that the system is fit for purpose and is actually happening in practice. Okay, so how do you ensure that actions identified in incident reports, audits, and reviews are communicated to the appropriate level within the organization and effectively addressed by the organization? Again, this kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of having adequate reporting systems in place, but also, and it goes back to my point earlier about that incident report that came through as a near miss, is ensuring that whoever is leading the incident investigations, particularly for the higher risk incidents, has been adequately trained in that. And it could be bow tie, it could be ICANN, whatever the methodology happens to be. I strongly encourage officers of businesses to ensure that the people who are put in charge of running these investigations know what they're doing, because I am growing increasingly concerned that our capability in New Zealand at large, when it comes to incident investigations, is incredibly inadequate. I'm serious about that. Like, I have a really privileged position of being able to review incident investigations from tier 1 and tier 2 main contractors throughout New Zealand, and I'm becoming quite concerned about the quality and the depth of these investigations, which all seem to be very surface level, and many seem to be skirting around reporting these incidents as incidents, and instead are reporting them as near-miss events, which in many cases, I would argue, are anything but near misses. Really interesting times. Okay, the last couple, I'm mindful of time. Number 9, hopefully I've been keeping my counting right. How does the organization's performance compare with other comparable organizations, and how do you know? Okay, so this is the second and the second to last question within the IOD guidance material and the list of questions that they recommend officers of a business to ask themselves. So how does the organization's performance compare with other comparable organizations, and how do you know? Really interesting question, right? So there's various forums out there that provide some benchmarking. Business health and safety, no, the health Business Leaders Health and Safety Forum has some metrics where they get their members to submit their data, and it gives you a bit of a benchmark. There are also third-party solution providers out there. So straight off the bat, I can think of one, which is Safe365, which has a phenomenal dashboarding system, which allows businesses who are subscribed to Safe365 to be able to see industry, compare industry to industry, and see where they sit within their overall culture and engagement score, so that they can then have a sense of how they are performing in comparison to others within their industry and across other sectors of the Kiwi business community. Really interesting insights. Other than that, I'm not sure how an organization would be able with any sense of confidence, have that type of data. Unfortunately, WorkSafe certainly doesn't have the data. ACC doesn't seem to have the data. The Business Leaders Health and Safety Forum made it very clear that in terms of information and data in New Zealand, when it comes to health and safety performance, it just ain't there. So we need to get over the fact that we need to rely on third-party private sectors to be able to give us that type of information. So if you do have a subscription to a particular system, whether it's EcoPortal, Assura, Safe365, whatever, have a look to see if you can get access to their statistics, because then you might be able to then do some benchmarking across your industries and other sectors as well. Interesting. And the last one, I'm well over time, I'm sorry, is how do you recognize and celebrate success? So as a business leader, an officer of an organization or an undertaking, how does the business recognize and celebrate success? Because health and safety is almost always put in the negative bucket. And again, this is going back to why I like ISO 45001, is because the hazards and risks are also complemented with opportunities. And so you start to get used to this type of language and this type of framework. You start thinking health and safety isn't a negative thing. What are the opportunities that the organization is currently experiencing? What else out there can we do to make this place a better, safer, more economically viable, thriving business? And so how do we acknowledge and celebrate health and safety performance? It can be formal, scheduled activities. It could be another example, and it's something I talk about in another video of mine, is the recognition and acknowledgement of health and safety representatives and the health and safety committee. Wouldn't it be awesome if businesses that have the resources to have an annual conference for your health and safety reps, bring all your reps together and just spend a day celebrating and acknowledging how awesome they are, bringing in expert trainers, giving them the opportunity to spend time with one another and to feel a sense of worth and acknowledgement. It's a huge piece of the puzzle, and I've seen it in practice where it completely invigorates and refreshes the health and safety representative and committee structures, and makes it a really desirable role where there's actually wait lists for people to become a health and safety rep in that organization. So that's just a couple of examples of how that could be achieved. Or it could just simply be chocolate fish at the end of the month. John, you did a really good job. Or a weekly acknowledgement of the amazing members that NZHSP has on this Facebook group. It all plays a part, right? So anyway, that's a bit of a mad ramble over my advice in terms of the 10 things I would be asking as an officer of an organization, to have some sense of security or verification that what we are doing is meeting the expectations and standards and thresholds of the Health and Safety at Work Act and what the regulator would be expecting of us. In order to get hands on a copy of that checklist and some guidance material, have a look through the file section on the NZHSP Facebook group. What else would I suggest? Yeah, I guess if you're watching, Brooke van Velden, Minister for workplace relations and safety. I would also recommend that you have a look at that guidance material as well, because you'll find that it's not as murky as you perhaps have been led to believe. And so, yeah, that would be my advice. Okay, a couple of things before I go, and I'll add these links in the comment section after I come off the recording. One is, if you haven't already, NZISM have put together a survey online to allow you the opportunity to tell your story about your experience with the legislation, with the regulator, with the guidance material. What would it take to make things better? Does it need to be improved? Does it need to have an axe taken to it? That's your opportunity. So NZISM, I'll put the link to that in a moment. You don't have to be a member to participate. It's a public survey. Congratulations, NZISM. Also, the New Zealand Health and Safety Professionals Summit 2025 is happening sometime around about now next year. Join the waitlist, because by joining the waitlist, it gives you the opportunity to tell us where it's going to be, what type of budget it's going to have, what content do you want to hear about, what would make the conference a success for you, and possibly the most important one is, what are the free actionable things that you want to be able to do as a result of attending the very best health and safety conference experience you have ever experienced. I'll put the link to join that waitlist and to start to tell us exactly what it would take to make the conference the best that it will be. Because if you guys are the ones determining what the conference is going to look like, then it's pretty much guaranteed it's going to be your best conference experience. So you need to get on that, okay? Because the way this has just exploded, and with some really exciting announcements that the people who are already on the waitlist heard about exclusively today, and we're going to be going public on some of those announcements over the next few days, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. Very, very exciting. Yeah, that's it. Let's wrap it up, Matt. Keep it simple. Okay. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Next week, I am actually going to try and take some time off. I'm actually going to spend a week with my family, and it's very exciting. It's the first time as a business owner, I think, that I've been able to take this amount of time off. So I may not be around on Friday next week. I'll let you know. If I don't make it next week, you can assume that I'm spending some really quality time with my wee ones and enjoying every second of it. So if you don't see me next week, I'll see you the following week. I'll let you know a little bit closer to the time. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for those who have tuned in live. Hello to those who are watching this in the recording. Say hello. Let us know if you're watching in the recording in the comment section as well, because we see you. And yeah, awesome. Cool. Thank you, Paddy. Thanks, Gemma. Karen. Brilliant. Love it. Andrew, really nice to see and hear from you too, buddy. I hope things are going well for you. And yeah, I'll catch you all next time. Take care. Bye.